Powerful people understand a truth that most never learn. The moment you react emotionally to disrespect, you hand control of yourself to the person who insulted you. Disrespect is rarely just about words. It is often a test, an invitation, or even a trap. Some people provoke others because they want attention, they crave a reaction, or they seek proof that they can influence someone else's emotions. The average person immediately defends their pride, raises their voice, argues, or seeks revenge. But those who possess real influence know that emotional control is the foundation of power. They recognize that the first battle is never against the disrespectful person. It is against their own impulses. If they lose control internally, they have already lost externally. Imagine a king who becomes furious every time someone criticizes him. His enemies quickly discover his weakness and use it against him repeatedly. Now imagine another leader who listens without changing his expression, says very little, and walks away without revealing what he feels. Which one is truly powerful? The second leader creates uncertainty. His silence forces others to wonder what he is thinking and what he might do next. Mystery has always been more intimidating than predictable anger. When people cannot read you, they cannot easily manipulate you. Disrespect often exposes hidden motives. Sometimes it comes from jealousy. Sometimes it comes from insecurity. Sometimes people try to lower your value because they secretly feel threatened by your confidence, achievements, or independence. If you immediately fight back, you allow their insecurity to dictate your behavior. Instead, powerful people observe. They ask themselves why this person feels the need to attack. They gather information before making decisions. Every insult becomes data. Every rude comment reveals something about the speaker's emotional state, priorities, and weaknesses. This does not mean accepting humiliation or becoming passive. It means choosing your response instead of letting emotion choose it for you. There is a significant difference between restraint and weakness. Weak people stay silent because they are afraid. Powerful people stay silent because they understand timing. They know that every move has consequences, and the right move at the wrong moment can become the wrong move entirely. History repeatedly shows that the individuals who shaped nations, built empires, or commanded loyalty were rarely controlled by momentary emotions. They endured criticism, betrayal, ridicule, and public attacks, yet they remained focused on their long-term objectives. Their attention stayed fixed on results rather than temporary satisfaction. They understood that preserving dignity is more valuable than winning a meaningless argument. When your emotions remain under your command, no insult can truly diminish your strength, because your greatest source of power comes from mastering yourself before attempting to master any situation. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. Most people assume that if someone says nothing after being disrespected, must be weak, intimidated, or incapable of defending themselves. But truly powerful people understand something that few ever realize. Silence is not the absence of action. It is often the highest form of control. Every argument requires two participants, and when one person refuses to play the game, the entire conflict begins to collapse. The individual seeking attention, validation, or emotional chaos suddenly finds themselves facing an empty space instead of the reaction they expected. People who disrespect others are often searching for a reward. That reward may be your anger, your frustration, your defensive explanations, or your desperate attempt to prove your worth. Once they receive that emotional response, they know they have influenced your state of mind. In that moment, they are no longer simply speaking to you, they are controlling you. Powerful individuals refuse to hand over that control. They recognize that every unnecessary response gives away energy that could have been invested in something far more valuable. Silence also creates uncertainty. Human beings naturally try to predict the behavior of others. When someone insults you and expects immediate retaliation, your calm response disrupts their expectations. They begin questioning themselves. They wonder whether you ignored them intentionally, whether you are planning something, or whether their words simply had no effect. This uncertainty shifts the psychological balance. The person who believed they had power suddenly loses confidence because they can no longer read your intentions. Robert Greene often emphasizes that power grows through restraint and strategic action rather than impulsive reactions. A person who immediately responds to every insult becomes predictable. Predictable people are easy to manipulate because others know exactly which buttons to press. But when your emotions remain hidden, you become difficult to control. Your silence becomes a shield, protecting your focus from distractions created by people who have no real influence over your future. This does not mean silence should last forever. There are moments when action becomes necessary, but powerful people choose the right moment instead of the first moment. They understand that timing can transform an ordinary response into a decisive victory. Instead of arguing in public, they may build greater success. Instead of seeking revenge through emotion, they respond through results. Instead of lowering themselves to someone else's level, they continue climbing while others remain trapped in conflict. The greatest advantage of silence is that it preserves your dignity. Words spoken in anger can rarely be taken back, and emotional reactions often create consequences that last far longer than the original insult. By remaining calm, observing carefully, and speaking only when it truly serves your purpose, you demonstrate a level of discipline that commands genuine respect. In the end, silence is not surrender. It is proof that your mind belongs to you, and no amount of disrespect can force you to abandon that control. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that disrespect defines their value. In reality, disrespect reveals far more about the person giving it than the person receiving it. Powerful individuals understand this principle deeply. They do not measure themselves by another person's opinion because they know that every action, every insult, and every attempt to diminish someone else comes from an internal condition. A respectful person does not need to belittle others to feel important. A secure person does not constantly search for opportunities to humiliate people. When someone repeatedly shows disrespect, they are exposing their own mindset, emotional state, and character. The wise observer sees this not as a personal attack, but as valuable information. Many people project their insecurities onto others. Someone who feels insignificant may mock another person's success. Someone who lacks confidence may criticize another person's ambition. Someone consumed by jealousy often disguises envy as sarcasm or contempt. If you immediately take these attacks personally, you begin carrying emotional burdens that never belong to you. Powerful people refuse to accept that burden. Instead, they silently ask themselves, what does this behavior reveal about this individual? That simple shift in perspective changes everything. Instead of becoming the victim of the insult, they become the student of human nature. Robert Greene often emphasizes that understanding people is more valuable than defeating them. Every interaction reveals patterns. A disrespectful comment may uncover hidden jealousy. A public insult may expose someone's desire for attention or dominance. A subtle act of disrespect may reveal fear, resentment, or a need for validation. Those who pay attention gain knowledge that becomes useful in future decisions. They learn whom to trust, whom to avoid, and whom to keep at a distance. Disrespect, when observed carefully, becomes a window into another person's true character. Emotionally reactive individuals rarely notice these patterns because their focus remains fixed on defending their pride. Their anger blinds them. They become so busy proving themselves that they fail to recognize the motivations behind the attack. Powerful people do the opposite. They remain calm enough to study the situation. They notice body language, tone of voice, timing, and the environment in which the disrespect occurs. Every detail helps them understand the psychology of the person standing before them. This mindset also protects self-confidence. When your identity depends on the approval of others, every insult becomes painful. But when your confidence comes from your own values, discipline, and accomplishments, criticism loses much of its power. You realize that another person's inability to respect you cannot erase years of hard work, personal growth, or achievement. Their opinion is simply another piece of information, not a verdict on your worth. Powerful people also recognize that character is revealed most clearly under pressure. Anyone can appear polite when life is easy. True character emerges during moments of frustration, competition, failure, or envy. A person who chooses disrespect during those moments is showing you exactly who they are. Instead of arguing, trying to change them, or seeking their approval, the wise individual accepts the lesson. They adjust their expectations, protect their boundaries, and become more selective about who deserves access to their time, trust, and energy. In this way, every act of disrespect becomes less of an injury and more of an education, strengthening judgment instead of weakening confidence. Powerful people understand that life is not won by the fastest reaction, but by the wisest response. When faced with disrespect, most people feel an immediate urge to defend themselves, retaliate, or prove their value. That impulse is natural, but it is rarely strategic. Those who truly understand power know that patience is not passive, it is a calculated form of strength. They recognize that every situation has a rhythm, and acting too soon often benefits the other person more than themselves. Instead of allowing emotions to dictate their actions, they allow observation, timing, and purpose to shape every move they make. Disrespect often creates emotional pressure. The person who insults you expects an instant response because they believe they have cornered you emotionally. They assume your pride will force you into an argument or an emotional display. Powerful individuals refuse to satisfy that expectation. They know that the strongest position is often achieved by remaining calm while everyone else loses composure. This emotional discipline creates an invisible advantage. While others are consumed by anger, they are gathering information, studying behavior, and identifying the best course of action. Patience gives clarity. Strong emotions narrow perception, causing people to focus only on the insult itself. But time expands perspective. After emotions settle, hidden motives become easier to recognize. You begin to understand whether the disrespect came from jealousy, competition, insecurity, frustration, or an attempt to manipulate you. What seemed like a personal attack may actually have very little to do with you at all. Powerful people value this clarity because accurate decisions require accurate understanding, not emotional assumptions. Strategy also means choosing battles wisely. Not every insult deserves attention. Some people thrive on conflict because it gives them significance. By refusing to engage, you deny them the satisfaction they seek. Other situations, however, require a response to protect your reputation, your boundaries, or your leadership. The difference is that powerful people never react simply because they feel offended. They respond only when the action serves a larger purpose. Every move is connected to a long-term objective rather than a temporary emotional release. Robert Greene often highlights that predictable behavior weakens a person's position. If others know exactly how you will react when challenged, they can manipulate your emotions whenever they choose. Strategic individuals remain difficult to predict. Sometimes they remain silent. Sometimes they answer calmly. Sometimes they walk away. Sometimes they respond decisively after enough time has passed. Because their actions follow strategy instead of impulse, others struggle to anticipate their next move, and uncertainty itself becomes a source of influence. Patience also strengthens confidence. People who constantly rush to defend themselves often seek approval from those who disrespect them. Powerful individuals understand that their worth does not depend on winning every argument. Their confidence comes from discipline, achievement, and self-respect. They are willing to wait because they trust their ability to act effectively when the right moment arrives. This inner security prevents them from being controlled by the opinions of others. History repeatedly shows that lasting victories belong to those who master timing. Great leaders, skilled negotiators, and influential thinkers rarely make major decisions in moments of emotional intensity. They pause, evaluate, gather facts, and then act with precision. That same principle applies to everyday disrespect. When patience guides your decisions and strategy directs your actions, every response becomes more effective, more meaningful, and far more powerful than any impulsive display of anger could ever be. Respect is one of the few things in life that cannot be demanded, purchased, or forced. The more a person insists on being respected, the more they often reveal insecurity rather than strength. Truly powerful people understand that genuine respect is a consequence of consistent behavior, emotional discipline, and unwavering character. They never waste energy trying to convince others of their importance. Instead, they allow their actions, decisions, and reputation to speak for them. Over time, people naturally begin to recognize and value those who remain composed under pressure, keep their word, and maintain their principles even when challenged. Many people confuse fear with respect. They believe raising their voice, intimidating others, or reacting aggressively will earn admiration. In reality, fear creates temporary obedience, not lasting respect. People may comply while the intimidating individual is present, but behind their back they often feel resentment, distrust, or a desire for revenge. Respect, on the other hand, is built on credibility. It grows when people repeatedly witness integrity, confidence, fairness, and self-control. Powerful individuals know this difference, and they invest in building trust rather than demanding submission. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to strengthen or weaken your reputation. When someone disrespects you and you respond with uncontrolled anger, observers may remember your emotional reaction more than the original insult. But when you remain calm, speak with confidence, and refuse to lose your composure, you demonstrate a level of maturity that others quietly admire. People are naturally drawn toward those who can remain steady during conflict because emotional stability signals inner strength. A person who controls themselves appears far more powerful than one who constantly tries to control everyone else. Robert Greene often emphasizes that reputation is one of the most valuable forms of power. A strong reputation is built slowly through countless small actions. It is created by consistency rather than dramatic moments. Every promise you keep, every challenge you overcome, and every time you refuse to be distracted by unnecessary conflict adds another layer to that reputation. Likewise, every impulsive outburst or emotional overreaction weakens it. Powerful people think beyond the present moment. They ask themselves how today's behavior will influence tomorrow's opportunities. Respect also comes from setting clear boundaries. Being calm does not mean allowing others to treat you poorly without consequence. Strong individuals communicate their limits firmly but without unnecessary emotion. They make it clear what behavior they will and will not accept. If those boundaries continue to be violated, they do not argue endlessly. They simply reduce access, end unhealthy relationships, or remove themselves from situations that no longer deserve their presence. This quiet decisiveness sends a stronger message than endless confrontation ever could. Another source of respect is competence. People naturally admire those who excel at what they do. When your skills improve, your confidence becomes genuine because it is supported by ability rather than empty words. Instead of spending time defending your value, powerful people spend time increasing it. They study, practice, work hard, and develop expertise. As their competence grows, so does their influence. Success becomes their strongest argument, requiring no loud announcement or constant validation. Perhaps the greatest lesson is that respect begins with self-respect. If you compromise your values to gain approval, tolerate repeated disrespect out of fear, or constantly seek validation from people who do not appreciate you, others notice that lack of confidence. But when you value your own time, protect your peace, honor your principles, and refuse to abandon your dignity for temporary acceptance, you create a quiet authority that cannot be imitated. People may not always agree with you, but they recognize the consistency of your character. In the end, lasting respect is never demanded through words. It is earned through disciplined actions repeated every single day. The greatest response to disrespect is not a clever insult, a louder argument, or an act of revenge. It is becoming so successful, disciplined, and fulfilled that the opinions of those who once tried to diminish you lose all influence over your life. Powerful people understand that time is their greatest ally. While others waste energy dwelling on insults and planning retaliation, they invest that same energy into building their future. They know that every minute spent proving themselves to someone who does not value them is a minute stolen from their own growth. Instead of chasing validation, they chase excellence. And excellence has a way of speaking louder than any defense ever could. Many people become trapped in emotional battles because they believe every act of disrespect requires an immediate answer. They replay conversations in their minds, imagine better comebacks, and allow anger to consume their thoughts for days or even years. Powerful individuals refuse to give disrespect that kind of power. They understand that attention is one of the most valuable resources a person possesses. Whatever receives your attention begins to shape your emotions, your decisions, and eventually your future. By redirecting their focus toward meaningful goals, they ensure that negativity never becomes the center of their lives. Robert Greene often writes that true power comes from controlling your direction rather than reacting to the agendas of others. Every insult is an invitation to leave your own path and step onto someone else's battlefield. The wise person declines that invitation. Instead of fighting endless personal conflicts, they continue developing their skills, expanding their knowledge, strengthening their finances, and improving their character. Their progress becomes the answer that words could never provide. Success also changes the way people perceive you. Those who once ignored you, underestimated you, or questioned your abilities often begin to see you differently once your achievements become impossible to dismiss. This is not because your value suddenly changed. Your value was always there. What changed was their perception. Powerful people never build their lives around changing other people's opinions because they know opinions are unstable. They build lives that reflect their own standards, allowing results to create credibility naturally over time. Another important lesson is that success is not measured only by money, status, or recognition. A peaceful mind, emotional independence, strong relationships, excellent health, and meaningful purpose are forms of success that no critic can take away. Someone may insult your appearance, question your decisions, or doubt your abilities, but they cannot destroy the confidence that comes from living according to your principles. When your fulfillment comes from within, disrespect loses its ability to control your emotions. The most influential people also understand that forgiveness can be a form of strength, not because the other person deserves it, but because carrying resentment limits your own freedom. They do not necessarily forget betrayal or invite toxic individuals back into their lives. Instead, they refuse to let past disrespect occupy valuable mental space. They learn the lesson, establish stronger boundaries, and continue moving forward without bitterness slowing their progress. In the end, the greatest victory is not defeating every person who disrespects you. The greatest victory is reaching a point where their words no longer determine your mood, your confidence, or your direction. Your discipline becomes stronger than their criticism. Your purpose becomes greater than their negativity. Your achievements become louder than their insults, and your character becomes so deeply rooted that no amount of disrespect can shake the foundation you have built. That is the kind of power that cannot be borrowed, imitated, or taken away because it is created through years of patience, self-mastery, and relentless commitment to becoming the strongest version of yourself.